Let's do that. Hello, everyone. Thank you all for attending. Very grateful that you're here, hear me talk about myself. I love to talk about myself, so it's great. And hello to everyone. This is being recorded, just for everyone's knowledge. So hello to everyone watching in the future. I've named my conservation conversation Black Muslim Woman, because over the last 2 years, I feel like my identity, my life experience has really guided me along this journey, to something I can't really escape, and I'm learning to embrace. So I'm going to start with, it's going to be a three-part presentation. First, I'm going to start with the root of it all. So this is one of my favorite photos of my family. It's my mom, my dad, my older brother, and me. We're all wearing traditional Malay attire, Malay from Malaysia. So I'm wearing, and my mom wearing baju kurung, and my dad and my brother are wearing baju Melayu with a kufi or topi, depends on who you ask what they're called. Um, I always knew my family was different, not only because it was an interracial relationship. I always knew, you know, from people assuming that my mom was my nanny, from people making comments about me having darker skin and my mom not, and my sister being light skinned. I think it was very early that I realized that I was born to be perceived as a political statement, a political symbol, and a rare possibility. Um, but who is myrah, anyways? If you don't know, I went to Michigan State University. So anyone who went to UMich, officially, you can't, you're blocked. You're blocked. I majored in comparative cultures and politics, which basically means I learned about global cultural perspectives around the world, um, and learning the relationship between culture, like race, religion, and gender, and how it shapes power relationships, and then the other way around how political and economic dynamics impact culture. Um, with this degree, I really wanted to be either a diplomat, foreign service agent, maybe a writer, or a translator. And although at my senior year of college, I applied and I got into a translation program, for Korean and English translation, I realized I wasn't ready, and I to go back to go to school again for 4 more years. I was interested in something else, and I wanted to earn money, for my family. I'm going to go over a few of these things here about some stats: strengths, public speaking, language learning, relationship building; weaknesses, analog clocks, impatience. I'm also a perfectionist. Um, and knowing this, I think I've always been very aware about myself. Um, and this is kind of where I'm starting from. So instead of going to translation school, I kind of had my mind on other things. I was really interested in the environmental field. It wasn't something really I explored until my last year of school. Um, and so this was informed by my identity. So both my parents had rural upbringings. My dad was born in Alabama, rural Alabama, and my mom in Singapore, between Singapore and southern Malaysia. They grew up raising chicken and livestock, fishing, playing outside with no shoes on, growing food, gardening. Um, and yet, one generation later, I am someone who's scared to be outside. I grew up to be very scared of the outside. I did not ride my bike too far. I did not climb trees too tall. I did not swim too deep. Um, for multiple reasons. In the neighborhood I was in, I'm from the Chicago suburbs. There was a lot of robberies, a lot of kidnappings. I never got kidnapped, obviously, but I don't know. My parents never let me go too far down the street. And because of that, I knew that maybe I didn't belong outside. Not even that, um, sports and stuff. No. If you had to pay for a sport, pay for the uniform, pay to go somewhere, my parents were not going to do that. Um, And so I grew up with this like fragmented sense and relationship with nature. In college, I learned more about environmental justice. I think the Flint water crisis was really pivotal for me to understand. Like, I think it was very clear to me, and I didn't have to know that this would never happen in a white city. If you don't know what the Flint water crisis is, it's basically tainted water that was given to Flint, Michigan, um, due to incompetence by the government of Michigan and the United States. Um, and they still to this day do not have clean water to drink or clean themselves. There's like lead in it and stuff. And I knew that because in my hometown of Waukegan, Illinois, the same thing happened. In 2019, the silicone plant exploded, killing four workers and releasing toxic chemicals into the air. Um, Again, I come from a Hispanic dominated city and neighborhood, Hispanic and African American. Um, and the fact that this is the place that the factory happened, and perhaps negligence and incompetence by people exploded. And then they're like, oh, we'll just give you some money to clean that up. Um, I realized what an injustice that was. Um, Another one of my big influences into the environmental field was my research assistantship during college. I did research assistantship with Michigan State and Mekong Culture Well, basically learning how climate change and global development surrounding climate change was affecting indigenous people in the Mekong River Delta. The Mekong River is I think, the longest river in Southeast Asia, or the biggest river. But it goes through Cambodia, Laos, Vietnam, and China, and parts of Thailand as well. I traveled there the summer after my senior year, um, and realized that I had never looked at nature as part of myself or part of my world. And to be in that kind of area was really humbling and challenging. Basically, I was helping facilitate workshops, um, interacting with the indigenous people, asking them what their stories are like, sharing my stories of being affected by climate change and environmental injustice. Um, I also had the chance to film. I created, along with two other research assistantships, a short film about Cambodia. We basically collected a soundscape of Cambodia, different parts of buildings, like there is construction sounds, there's also water sounds, there's, you know, sounds of the wind, and kind of capturing how the land is when it's alone in a way. I don't know how to say it, but it was I was really happy with it and had a great time. These two books in the corner, Mushroom at the End of the World, on a possibility of a life on capitalist ruins, and Braiding Sweetgrass, Indigenous Wisdom, Indigenous Knowledge, and the Teaching of Plants were also really big influences on why I'm so passionate about environmentalism and connecting the natural world to yourself and to your inner self. If you have not read these books, that's okay. They're super long, but they're great reads, and I totally recommend them if you have the chance to read. Um, and so I picked this fellowship, and then the Ray Fellowship, we had to pick your top three. Um, and this was my number one because public lands, I never thought about public lands. I'd been to Yellowstone like once. Public land meaning government owned land, so that's National Park Service, National Forest, U.S. Forest Service, the Bureau of Land Management, all of them. I definitely like just heard them, but I was more interested in connecting my own history to how the United States and Native Americans and Native Alaskans are being treated, and being like an ally to that experience. Um, I name right here the Bungarang and in Malaysia as another instance of environmental injustice. Bungarang, Malaysia is where my mom's family is originally from. My mom on her father's side. long story short, they had to move off their ancestral land in order to make room for an oil refinery, the country's biggest oil refinery. Um, and I heard that story when I was there in Malaysia 2 years ago, and I was just so shocked and kind of disgusted that I would never get to see or get to experience where my mom grew up. Um, you know, and just in one generation that was changed. And so I was really interested in how the United States is treating the ancestral lands of Turtle Island, of what we call now the United States. And so that goes into my goals that I had. So I had three main goals. One, heal my personal connection to nature. Two, get more into Indigenous stewardship, Indigenous ecology, Indigenous knowledge, um, and understand power relationships. Again, I think centering Indigenous people and conservation is the key to saving the earth. And so that was a big goal of mine. And my third goal with this fellowship was just to discover my career path, see what's next. Um, I wanted to take the 2 years to learn as much as I could, to talk to people I would never talk to really push myself. Um, and that is easier said than done. So I'm going to go to my next segment about my journey in this fellowship called Growing Pains. When people ask me like, "Oh, how's your fellowship going?" I can't help but to be like, it's okay. I'm not I'm not over the moon about it. Because I realized I was in pain. I'm constantly in a lot of pain and thinking about a lot of things. And I realized when I had to take this step to the fellowship, I had to choose between the pain of growth or the pain of staying where you are. So on the side of pain with growth, I have a picture that I took in New Orleans of a couple plants growing through the grate around a bigger tree. And so kind of growing against the odds. And so that's one choice. The other choice is this rose bush outside of my house that's really overgrown and needs to be pruned. But it's still growing. It's still, growing and making new leaves. You just need to actually prune it back for it to actually flourish. And essentially, these plants represent two stages of either staying where you are, staying stagnant, and still growing and having that pain of, you'll never actually flourish, but it's where you feel comfortable, or growing and having to surpass your odds. As a Black woman, as a Muslim woman, as me, I had no choice but to choose the pain of growth. So here's two of my greatest challenges. One was overcoming a steep learning curve. Um, when I started with public lands conservation and from the very, very start. And so everything was completely new and I had to catch up. And I felt like, you had to learn new jargon. You have to know what FLIPMA is, NEPA is, ACECs are, RNIs, who's TRCP, who's WWA. I'm like, I don't know if I should write this down or I should like keep going or what. I was really struggling. Um, and honestly, it just blocked out of my mind the first 2 or 3 months. Um, and the other steep learning curve is general adulthood questions. um, I had to learn when a deductible is. I genuinely, my best friend called me and was like, "Do you know anything about like what my deductible is and how you reach it?" I'm like, honestly, I've never reached it. I don't know what that is, and I kind of just hope for the best. Um, so it's those kind of things where you're at the point where, God, I actually figured this out for myself. And in that kind of mixed in is the pressure to be exceptional, to not feel like you're struggling. And I think that comes from racial bias I've experienced and also gender bias. I don't want to seem like the weak link. And then people will point out, oh, it's the Black girl that's, not doing well. Or again, it's my own pressures, but very real things I experienced, especially in college. People underestimating me or or not expecting me to get certain awards or things like that because I was a Black Muslim girl. Um, and then I have this little frog cartoon of "Are you okay?" and not okay, not okay. Um, this has been me many, many times a week. My other big challenge was finding community. Um, I'm in Portland, Oregon right now, which is the nation's largest, whitest big city. Um, and when I was looking up like the fellowship, I was like, yeah, Portland, I've never been there before. Would I ever go there on my own? Probably not. But it's where the job is. Um, Here in Portland, when they say white, not only literally white, but there's a lot of whiteness as in it's suffocating. Respectfully, to all the white people on here, still love you, but respectfully, um, I've gotten many, many microaggressions, or just macroaggressions, Islamophobia, sexism. I've noticed a lot in Portland. I take the bus. I don't have a car. If the bus is crowded, wallahi, no one will sit next to me. People would rather stand up than sit next to me. At the gym, I remember when I used to go to the gym, I would use a machine, and how people kind of leave a space next to you. People would leave the whole area, and then when I would leave, then they would come in, and I'm like, hold on. But then I would go to, and I was like, maybe not. I would go to a certain space, and if I was there, people would leave, or people would avoid me completely, or would rather go to a place that would possibly be more crowded than to, be next to me. And I was like, this is kind of a perk, as in no one bothers me, but also like I think I'm a pretty friendly guy. Um, and this sucks. I don't think you can see this photo right here, but it was like an AI photo of what a Portlander looks like. They were like having coffee and voodoo donuts or something. And these were my major pains. Um, and I definitely still struggle with them. And so you're like, okay, how did you do it? Because there has to be a happy ending. There's not really. I realized that, as Audre Lorde said, pain is important. How we evade it, how we succumb to it, how we deal with it, and how we transcend it. And there's a little drawing about healing. Healing actually works in a nonlinear process of learning to live with the pain and taking care of your tender spots. Um, is that really hippie? Yes. But what it means to me is this kind of journey I'm going through, or this phase in my life in my early 20s. I'm trying to learn to really lean, excuse my language, lean into the pain, as they say, and try to just accept some possibilities that, as someone who is Black Muslim woman, people don't want you around and don't want you to survive. And that is what keeps me going, as weird as that sounds. And I don't know a better way to say it. Um, I've done a lot of healing in which, of course, going to therapy and also kind of unlearning my own pressures against myself. Again, in this like little thing, it says this doodle, you think after a reasonable amount of time, you're gonna get better. And I was, and I was thinking that um, with certain racisms, when getting away from things, getting away from college, you're like, it'll be over once I do this. Once I get this job, I'll be fine. Once I get this job and I get a promotion, I'll be fine. Um, but I have noticed that that is actually not the case. Um, and I've found a lot of greatness in just accepting it, or trying my best to realize, okay, this hurts, and what am I going to do about it? Um, and so now I'm going to go into the third part about how I overcame it. And that one is called New Possibilities. And there's a quote from like a Zapatista slogan: the world is one we want, where many worlds fit. Um, I think I came across this quote as I was going through a lot of grief when at Pew, well, the Ray Fellowship program ended at Pew this year, or it was paused. Um, and I was really, really like devastated and sad and did not know what to do. Really, I definitely went into like some sort of pit of hopelessness because I felt like, well, the reason the Ray Fellowship was paused was because of the Supreme Court case that passed about affirmative action and sort of legal concerns about that. It was a whole big thing. If you're from Pew, you remember that time. Um, and I remember writing in my diary about it. And I was like, this was just one of the possibilities. This is a world where this possibility came true. And now we had to figure out what are the next possible possibilities. Um, and that kind of got me through that. Um, I also had some really good moments um, through this pain. So I have three kind of examples where my identity and myself was fully present and I didn't feel like I had to hide or I was unsafe. So one of the campaigns was Protect Chaco. It was around the Chaco Canyon in New Mexico on Navajo and Pueblo land. Um, and I got the chance to work really closely with Indigenous nations. I also met the Secretary of Interior. This is my second time meeting her. It was really, really, really cool. During this trip in this photo, we went on a fly-in to talk to policy lawmakers about Chaco Canyon and how to protect it. And going from each meeting to each meeting, I got to have really small conversations with them, the governors and chairman of the Pueblo nations. And I remember one of them had said to me, like, well, because even though I'm an ally, I'm indigenous, but this is not really, I'm not indigenous to here. I was talking to them about that. And they're like, witnessing history and witnessing the change is enough. Um, and I kind of thought about that and was like, dang, he kind of ate with that. He kind of ate. Um, and I was very proud to be witnessing change and witnessing their power and the way they were representing their ancestors and representing their future. Another example of that was the Jackson Hole Intertribal Gathering that happened last October, um, where it was kind of a convening for tribal nations, environmental NGOs, and also government agencies like the Forest Service, talking about the Bridger Teton Forest Plan and other forests around the area that people would manage and how they want it to be managed. Um, we planned it for over a year. And so I got a lot of chances to really understand where is the way we can give the most value. Again, as someone who is not indigenous, the company Pew is not an indigenous people, and how do we uplift other people um, while they're trying to get tribal co-stewardship? It was just so cool. And I remember during this time, someone had stood up and like we were talking about, we're all like going around and saying how like happy we were to be there at the time. And they're like, I'm so happy to be in a room with mostly Native, brown, and Black people. And I was like, me too, girl. And it was so nice. I was like, wow, white people are the minority here. And they made like a joke about that too. It's like, oh, these are the forest supervisors. And it was really easy to get along with everybody. And felt like I wasn't doing work at a time, honestly. And then we had the Future Climate Leaders Fellowship. So I did two fellowships technically um, during this time. And this is when I applied, and out of, I think, over 2,000 people, I applied and was a cohort of about 150. Because of that, I went to the Future Leaders Climate Summit and the Aspen Ideas Climate Conference in Miami, Florida in March of this year. There I got to really be inspired by a lot of people my age that were climate justice leaders, either starting their companies or nonprofits or doing their own projects, making their own magazines. And I was so inspired and felt like I was really a part of something, you know. We got to share ideas, experiences, all our stories, got a lot of good advice, connections. And with these three outcomes, I really felt like my goals were achieved. You know, I think I've learned a lot, um, so much that I'm afraid to lose it. If I like, you know, literally went on vacation for 1 week, I think I would forget everything. Um, so these are the really good moments that I wanted to point out. Um, and so now that we've done the good moments, the bad moments, what now? Um, what now was the name of my speech to my graduating class in 2022. It was my speech, just so you know, in case that wasn't clear. Um, and I was kind of like, I think this is a question everybody asks after something so huge. You're like, okay, what next? And I'm like, what's next is to celebrate the last 2 years that I survived and I didn't quit. Even though I wanted to quit at times, honestly, I'm just like, man, maybe this job is not meant for me. Maybe I'm actually not as smart as I thought I was. Maybe I should just go home. Um, and really happy that I didn't. What now? I am staying on at Pew, thankfully, alhamdulillah, full time and in a new position as an associate. Thank you. And so, alhamdulillah, I mean, this is a opportunity that I prayed for and um, have been really wanting to do, like to achieve. And it seems a bit unreal. It was just yesterday that I've been talking to my mom about her going back to Singapore. She has been back since her grandfather, her father passed away in 2016. And yesterday I finally got to buy her a ticket to Singapore and have her stop and also Turkey and Istanbul to visit around that area as well and just give back to her because she is the one that my parents are the ones that really, really sacrificed for my well-being and for my education. Um, when I was growing up, the only reason I do writing and poetry and am such a big reader and now is because my parents were like, well, maybe they didn't expect this, but they're like, no, we're not taking you to do sports. You have pen and paper right here. Why don't you just like write a book? Why don't you just read this book and copy it? And I did that so many times enough that I liked writing and reading. And out of that kind of struggle, you flourish from the concrete, like that flower through the grate. I mean, the plant through the grate. And so I hope to keep supporting my family with um, this money I'm earning and also enjoy myself with little trips, little self care. Um, and I think a lot of people may ask about what about graduate school? Um, Once Biden or Harris gives me a coupon to go to school, I don't know if I will, unless again I get a little free coupon from the university or something. Would love to. I think if I did want to go to graduate school, I'd love to do it in international relations or in global politics or global environmental policy. Um, Going back to my bachelor's, I really still am interested in the intersection of race studies, cultural studies, and global development and power. Um, and so would love to take my experience in the environmental field and attach it to that. And with that, I'm going to show a few photos of me and my pals. So thank you to everyone. If you're in here, you're a pal, obviously. Um, Love to say thank you to them. Also, love to say thank you to all the areas that I visited, all the mushrooms, the flowers that I passed, all the grass that I stepped on, and they allowed me to be there. Um, really glad that I took so many trips in the last 2 years, got to see so many things and meet new people. I think I have one last slide here. Yes, the special thanks. Special thanks to my sister, my roommate Estefania, Pew PDX office. If y'all are here, rep, number ones. Laura Williams for dealing with my anxiety so much and helping me through this journey. She's my manager. Shout out, Laurel. Shout out, Debbie Sohn. Shout out her. Literally like mom away from mom, literally goals. The Ray Fellows, obviously, love you guys all. I would like a shout out to Celsius energy drinks for keeping me awake when coffee does not do the thing. And also like say thank you to the Columbia and Willamette rivers. I love you guys. Thank you for protecting and flowing through Portland. I really love the Willamette River, and also all the birds that I've seen, and all the birds that have tweeted past me, all the crows. Very grateful for you all. With that, thank you all for listening. That concludes my conservation conversation. So I am going to maybe stop sharing right now, and so I can see everybody, and also look at the chat because I saw that blowing up. With that, I would love to see if anyone has any questions. We can have a conversation about uh, more of what I talked about. Um, yeah, thank you all for the love. I see it. I see it. Someone said the ref better call traveling because you're going places. Oh my God, Steph, you're on here? Oh, we have a question. Hi, Hannah.
Hi, Myra. Thank you for sharing this with us. It was so amazing. I'm always in awe of your way of just like you're so talented at expressing yourself in a way that is like it's somehow both like really funny and entertaining, but also just like the most like inspiring, poetic thing you've ever heard, like somehow at the same time. And it's I don't know. I'm always so impressed by you. My question is you talked a little bit about like your relationship and understanding with the natural world growing up and how the community you grew up in, it kind of felt like that was a world that didn't feel like a world you belonged in at some point. And I was wondering like if within the past 2 years living in Portland and working at Pew and doing this conservation work and getting to travel to all of these places, how do you feel like your personal connection with the natural world has changed or like is continuing to change? Yeah, and just like any reflections you have on that.
Thank you, Hannah. That's such a good question. And thank you for the compliments. Um, yeah, if you haven't heard yet, I've been telling like everyone, I just learned how to swim about 2 weeks ago. And it was the scariest, like weirdest thing to overcome. It was like when I was younger, I was afraid to take showers and take baths because I was afraid of water and I was afraid of drowning. I remember accidentally stepping in and I was like, I don't want to do that if I can't touch the floor. And so I finally was like, I'm a big girl. I can use my big girl money to go do a swimming lesson. And so I did that. Um, and I think it's, again, opened up a lot of new possibilities for myself. Um, Honestly, one of the biggest ones was like just in case I fall out of a helicopter or something into the ocean, I'm gonna be kind of good. I'm a kind of know how to do something. That's like my biggest fear. But also, if there's a river or a swimming pool hole, I can do a little something, you know. Now, why would I be in a helicopter? I don't know. I don't know. Maybe when I'm president and I got to do something and I got to jump out and I want to make sure I got it all down. So I've been very grateful for that. Very grateful for my roommate who always pushes me to get my hands dirty with gardening, with kind of just sitting on the dirt. I remember I've gotten so used to like being outside, not to be so Portland, being outside barefoot, but like on the grass, y'all. But like that I would never do that before. I would never do that. I would never not wear gloves while touching dirt. And I've seen like I mean, myself get more calm for sure. It definitely calms me down more than gives me anxiety, which is a plus. So I can have more time to have, anxiety about other things. So thank you for that. Questions, comments, concerns, opinions, suggestions. Defina, I see you.
Hey, Myra. Thank you so much for that presentation. I just wanted to say that I really resonated with what you were expressing kind of with coming into this fellowship. And just listening to you, I just had this feeling of like, wow, I didn't know that other people had the same kinds of difficulties. Because I also kind of felt that pressure of like, oh gosh, like this isn't anything like academia at all. I don't know how to find my place. Is what I'm doing, does what I do matter? Um, all of these big existential questions, because this was supposed to be the moment where it was all figured out, and it's not. So what to do from there? So I just really appreciated you sharing that perspective, and that people are coming to similar conclusions in terms of like, wait, it doesn't necessarily stop hurting, but we just kind of figure out how to do it the best we can, and that's just kind of life. So I just really appreciated that, like, adulting perspective, that transition from, young adult where everything is structured and people tell you there's a path, this is all you have to do to follow it, and then that reality of like, oh, I got to use this brain here and take it a day at a time and see what happens. So I just appreciate you.
Thanks, Defina. Yeah, gaining consciousness is a traumatic experience for sure. And realizing all the stuff you have to do in right now. Um, yeah, I think that's something I had to kind of just learn. When you have enough pain and when you have enough abandonment, enough issues, I feel like there's like a threshold. I can't go past here. Once I'm here, all I have to do is I'm already at rock bottom. I have to see where I stand and look up, you know? Um, and that just comes with being also like a Black woman, a Black Muslim woman. We have generational trauma and something through my lineage that has prepared me to survive. And alhamdulillah, I'm very grateful for that. And it's so weird, so weird. When my mom was 24, she was not doing this. My dad was 24. He was in the Navy doing God knows what, you know. Um, and both my parents, when they did not graduate high school, um, and really, they don't really understand either, I think, what's going on. But they know that I'm making money, and I'm happy. So yeah, it's hard to grow. It's hard to be an adult. I turning 25 this year, and half 50 is like exciting, and I'm excited to age. Um, but also like I have to keep saying that I'm 25 once I turn 25, and then it'll keep going. Don Chavez. Thanks, Joey, for saying great job. That means a lot.
Myra, that was a really inspirational presentation and just showed so many sides of yourself. Um, Thank you for your vulnerability and sharing. Um, yeah, I've been in this field for a long time. I'm turning 50 in a couple weeks. So I'm there. I was once 25 as well. Um, but there's so much that you bring to the fields that you're intersecting with. And um, I'm so inspired by you. And I listened to a talk by Simon Sinek recently, who was talking about what is leadership and what are the two essential characteristics of leadership. And he mentioned perspective and compassion. And I see that you bring such a unique perspective, unique in the field of environmental conservation and clean energy, but not unique among your peers as you're seeing it's resonating with so many people, what you're sharing. And I think that perspective needs to grow within the world in order to meet the challenges that we have before us. And also your compassion and the way that you've brought your lived experience to empathize with others and really share that with folks. I think you're already a leader, and I'm excited to see what comes next for you. Thank you.
Thank you. What comes next is the next day. I appreciate you. Carrie, one of my favorite white women. Hello.
All right, I'll figure out how to take my hand down in just a sec. Myrah, you're amazing and inspiring and fabulous. And just throughout this presentation today, I just was thinking so much about how we perceive ourselves and how the world perceives us, because every time I'm around you, I'm just like, oh my God, she's so smart and she's like so amazing. And she always brings something new and I learn something from her. And I see you as just like such a this strong, confident, amazing woman. And I know you are. And I also today learned so much about the insecurities and the anxieties. And so I just want to say I love working with you, although we don't work together too much. And I just love learning from you, and just the way that you perceive yourself and the way I perceive you seem to be worlds apart, because you show up in every situation that I'm with you as such a strong, informed, curious, dynamic leader. So thank you for all you do, and thank you for inspiring us 50-year-old white women twice your age. There's so much fun to be had in the next 25 years and more. So thank you for all you do.
Thank you. Inshallah, God's willing. Yeah, I appreciate that. I never thought that I give off confidence. I think it's like a fake it till you make it thing. So I appreciate that. And inside, I'm hooting and hollering. Layla. Oh, you're muted, babes.
Myrah, thank you, and congratulations on this presentation. You did a really great job, and also just working with you, and then also just being around you in your presence is just such an honor, actually. And I'm just so happy you've gotten to meet you and know you through the Ray Fellowship. You have so much integrity, and I consider you like a very good advocate and creative, and you just have so many qualities that just make up who you are. Yeah. And I wanted to ask you, what is a wish that you have for yourself? And it could be professional, it could be personal, that you want to put out there so we could all kind of support you on that.
A wish for myself? I mean, I can make a wish list if you know what I mean. But a wish for myself, I don't know. I think every year for my birthday, not to spoil it, I always want friends. Making friends in adulthood is so hard. Sometimes you guys meet up, sometimes you don't. Sometimes you don't talk for hours, for weeks. And then are we still friends? I don't know. And so I really hope to find my community here in Portland. Still looking for it, where I can be myself. I think the West Coast is a totally different country than the Midwest. I think when the Cascades rip and they rip off to an island, it's going to be completely different. It might as well, because being here in the West Coast, people have called me blunt, and I was like, blunt, girl, I'm just saying stuff. You better get used to this. And so that's one of the things that I really hope I can find, is someone who can understand that I'm not meaning to be blunt or rude. I just talk straight, and I happen to be Black, and so it looks that way. So hoping for more friends, hoping to sustain friendships, through the Ray Fellowship. I hope to join another fellowship or something. I love to do things in groups. Love a group project. Love a, a community, something like that. So if anyone knows anything like that, please let me know because I can't do this alone. Bestie sauce will live forever. Thank you all for all the compliments in the chat. Thank you, chat. Okay. Nia, what do you think? Taking it day by day. Myrah, what are you doing self-care after this? Oh my God, I'm gonna go to sleep probably. I'm gonna take like a 20-minute nap. Because I need to like decompress like a transformer into something right now. Later on, I'm gonna go to a poetry event. Maybe gonna say some new stuff. Maybe not. Gonna see some good friends though, I think, at the poetry event. But yeah.
Awesome. Yeah, if there's no other questions, comments, concerns, suggestions, observations, we can go ahead and close it out. Just so you know that this recording will be available once it's, edited and presentable. I'm gonna share it with Myrah, of course, but it's also gonna be on our Ray Fellowship website under our digital library. And so you can find this conversation and other conversations that are upcoming in the series will be held there for your review. And I see Joey has a hand.
Yes.
Yeah, can you hear me?
I can hear you.
Oh, I'd just like to say good job, man. It's been great working with you on the coalitions that we worked on, and just you as a person, and really, and your willingness to do things that you haven't done, and get in like our overnight camping that we were supposed to do, and the fear that you had, but you embraced it and you went with it. And, those things are awesome because, it's something that you're willing to do for an organization to get that feel of what it is for the land that you are trying to protect, and I guess the whole spirituality of it. You embraced it and you go forward, and that's pretty positive. So thank you.
Thank you, Joy. I love being around you and excited to see you later this month in New Mexico. Miriam also asked if my writing is published or shared anywhere. Yes. If you did not know, I was in the Bigfoot poetry competition, and they are somewhere. I will get it to people. My writing, trigger warning, can be pretty sad and sometimes pretty off-putting. But yeah, I have a few writings, a few speeches that I've done. And if you guys want to share, I can share out with the recording. And with that, thank you all for listening. Thank you all for the compliments. I hope you all have a great day, great morning, wherever you are, and take care of yourself.